Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast, transforming the way leaders communicate. Here's your host, Alex Swire-Clark.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Alex. How are you? It's Liz here.
Hey, Liz. How are you today?
I'm good.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, Liz and I were talking off the air. If you haven't listened to number 3 episode, our high D dominant style episode, we have a very funny little intro part where I'm saying hello and Liz took a coffee break.
I might have been sleeping.
Are you there? Hello. So I'm glad we're all here today. That's a good thing. Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast. We are glad to have you today. As always, we are here to help you improve your relationships in every possible way. We help you break down the walls of communication, increase your emotional intelligence, and build better relationships in the workplace and beyond. So that is the goal. We do it in a fun but factual way for all of the different styles that we have out there. We'll try to meet you at the needs that you have. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, I am Alex Swire-Clark, CEO, speaker, and certified human behavior expert.
And I'm Liz Parker, certified behavioral analyst, strategic growth consultant, and job benchmarking whiz.
We like job benchmarking. It's a little bit about today's episode is about job benchmarking because we're talking about sales, and we're going to discuss, what styles work best in sales, and we're going to discuss, how to close more, how to build rapport, and lots of good little nuggets today. Primarily, though, this show is all about you. We want your feedback and your input. You can find us on Facebook at The Rapport Advantage. You can find us on Twitter at Rapport Podcast or visit the website at rapportadvantage.com. You can leave a digital message through our SpeakPipe app. Pretty much the coolest thing ever. You just go to the right-hand side. You'll see a little yellow vertical line that says leave a voice message. You just click on it, leave a voice message for us, and then we'll get that on the show and answer your questions to the best we can. I know a lot of you have thought about, okay, I'm a high I style. How does that relate when I'm talking to D's in a sales situation, when I'm asking for a raise, when I'm coaching someone? So we want those specific questions because we like answering those and giving you value out of the podcast and what you're listening to.
That's right. And we can talk off the cuff. So whatever they have, we can answer.
Absolutely. We can certainly do that. Because we are royalty. Well, maybe not. But today, we're excited. We spent our last 4 episodes working on all of the DISC foundational basics. Today, we get down to the nitty-gritty, practical applications. And we're excited about it. It's critical to know the characteristics of the different styles, and that's why we spent so much time on that foundational knowledge. As always, our goal when looking at human behavior is to, number 1, understand ourselves first. Then, number 2, understand others. So that 3, we can adapt our communication style and our behavioral style to meet others where they are. And that is the key to effective communication. Speaking the same language. # nailed it.
Oh, that's a new one.
Got to keep it fresh. These concepts can be applied in your professional and personal life, so feel free to use this info wherever you go. Not just, I've got to make a sale today, but this also can help you with your spouse and helping you relate with your children in different organizations, clubs that you might be a part of. It's really an all-time 24-hour-a-day knowledge basis, and unlike some podcasts, which focus on leadership, which is great, you can lead in lots of different ways, this is something that's truly 24/7.
It's true. We talk about all different types of people. We talk about all different relationships. So it is a nonstop kind of situation where we can cover everything.
Indeed it is. Our DISC thought of the day, we typically start every show with one of these. And in previous episodes, we've given you different examples throughout history of famous people who've personified some of these characteristics. And today, we're going to give you a quote, not tell you who it's from, and then we're going to let Liz kind of identify in her own way what style she thinks it is and who this person might happen to be, and we'll kind of go through that a little bit. So putting Liz on the spot today, which is always fun for me.
Well, it is very nice of you to do that, Alex. Do you want to read the quote or do you want me to read it?
I'll handle it. Okay,
all
so
right.
Quote is, "It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop." It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop.
All right. Well, I'm going to start analyzing this. And the first thing I would start with is the slowly you go, all about pace. And as you think about pace, S's like a methodical pace. They like to be very steady. So they could go slow. They could go a little bit faster. So that it's got to be an S type of person as long as you do not stop. You tend to like leaders. So I got to think this is some kind of a leader who's out there saying this quote. And I'm just trying to think what kind of leader. Is it a live or dead leader? Are you going to give me that today?
This person has passed away many moons ago.
Oh, many moons ago.
Hint, hint.
Oh, holy cow. Now it's a little bit harder. I was going to go with a Churchill kind of thing. But if you're saying many moons ago, are we going back further than that?
Can't really tell you.
Oh, well, let's see. Any other clues you want to give me? Because they're going slowly. They don't stop. They're continuing to go forward. Confucius?
We have a winner. Ding, 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 ding.
Woohoo!
First time guest. There we go. So Liz Parker, mark it down on your calendars. Liz Parker, 1 for 1 on Disc Thought of the Day analyzing. Now, hopefully the next podcast, she's not going to make me do the same thing because I'll probably mess that up. But hey, very good. So Confucius, and I was going to give you a little hint on with my not very good Chinese accent. It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. But that would have been bad because you're like, okay, were you speaking Canadian there? What were you doing there? And then I would be insulting Canadians and folks from China. So sorry to all you people.
That's right. You covered it nicely. So thank you. Man, that was a tough one.
Tough one, but very kind of proverbial in its scope. So you nailed it. Very, very good. I know you can do it. I had confidence in you. You're so good.
Thank you. What are we on to next?
We're on to our main topic of the day, which is closing more sales. And we have so many people that are out there tweeting about closing more sales. And I'm the guru of closing sales. And I don't care if you've got a small team, big team. I'll help you close more sales. And that's ultimately the goal in business. You want to close more sales, do more deals, and gain more revenue. And we certainly appreciate that. Our approach to this is a little bit different in terms of we're not necessarily focusing on answering objections. We're not focusing on coming back in and really following up. We're going to come at it from a little bit different aspect and look at the professional side of building relationships. And
can I just jump in there for a second, Alex, to have you tell them a little bit about you are doing that now with groups out there in talking about how to build those relationships and where you start?
I do. That's what I do from the podium as a professional speaker. It's also what I do in workshops with folks. Sometimes I'll come in and I've got friends who are entrepreneurs and run businesses, or they're running organizations, clubs, and things like that. And they say, hey, Alex, can you come talk to us about how to better communicate within our team and then within our team at our organization back at work when we leave this luncheon? And so that's something of how we do. And a lot of times you hear about the closed sales, and rightfully so. Companies spend millions of dollars on that final piece of the puzzle. I mean, Brian Tracy has the steps to selling and really hits the last 5, 6, and 7 hard. But when you talk about the beginning of the process, you're prospecting number 1, but then number 2, once you've gotten to that point, you're building trust and rapport. And that's really early in the process. If you don't get that piece of the puzzle done, you're never making it to 5, 6, and 7. So
that's right.
That's why we really focus on this rapport side of things in terms of speaking people's language, meeting them where they are, and not manipulating, but reaching out in a positive way. And we've talked about this before, always using your relationship management powers for good and your disc powers for good. You don't want to go travel down the dark side of the force because that leads to the M word, that manipulation word, and that's never what we're about. We're always trying to create win-win. So that's what we try to teach folks, and we've had a lot of success with it. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from it, and it's just a unique principle. I think that a lot of folks end up having DISC in their lives, and DISC has its own kind of stereotypes, just like MBTI does, but it's going beyond knowing yourself, and that's why we've tried to tell you that in every podcast is that understanding yourself, yes, is important. That's the number one thing, but then it's about reaching out to others, understanding them, and then being able to communicate effectively. If you just stop with you, hey, I'm a C, that's great. I'm glad you're a C, but how do you relate to a D? How do you
adapt?
How do you adapt? And so that's huge in terms of what we're going to be talking about later. So we get asked a lot, Liz, hey, I'm doing some job benchmarking, and I want to create a sales position. And this is right in your wheelhouse. Of course, I do a little bit of this in a little bit different way, but right in your wheelhouse. And they say, Liz, which style works best in sales. So what's your response to that?
Oh, there is no silver bullet. That's usually what I have to say, because depending on what's going on and what you're selling and the approach of your customers, you're going to have different styles work differently. All styles can be successful salespeople. I think that's the most important thing to know. But there are different roles that people take. So as we start to look at roles and what needs to happen, I think two of the most common words that we use, Alex, first one is?
Hunter.
Aha! Bing, 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 bing. Where's our noisemakers? Exactly. Hunter is the first one. And the second one is?
Farmer. And I have a cow, but I can't really get to it right now. So how about a dog? So we got hunters and farmers out there. Those two are very, very, very different. So for those of you who are new into the sales industry, and I'm sure you've heard those terms but may not be familiar from our perspective, you want to explain what you think a hunter is, Liz?
Well, I always think of a hunter as the person that's going out there, to get that kill. They're trying to go out, find the meat out there. They want fast closes. They want to get in. They want to get out. They don't mind being out there cold calling. They are in people's faces just trying to find the business, find the business, find the business. How do you think about it?
I totally agree. And they're typically more interested in one-off sales. So whether that be B2C, business to a consumer, or they're going B2B, business to business. They're looking for, hey, I'm a person that sells, generators for factories. That's going to be $1.5 million sale or whatever that number is. I'm going to have one of these, maybe every 6 months or whatever. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to work it. I've got an opportunity. Boom, I've got my PowerPoint. I'm coming in there, slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. And then I either get it or I don't, and I'm moving on to the next thing. There is no relationship in that scenario. It's just, here I am, here are the facts, here's why you should buy this thing, and bam. And then the decision maker makes a decision, and then it's over. So
that's right.
Versus the farmer, who's all about that relationship. And so they introduce themselves, and then they maintain a level of rapport, maintain a level of enthusiasm, maintain a high relationship so that they generate that top of mind awareness. And so, I need X. Let me go call Liz because she's awesome and she's been keeping up with me and providing value with it, whether it be through a podcast or through her newsletter or whatever it happens to be. She's provided me value basically free of charge. So, and I know she's an expert at that. Let me go consult with her and buy from her.
I happen to always think about support. They love supportive relationships. They like being able to kind of be that advisor and that friend. As a farmer, they are kind of always nurturing and keeping that maintenance going.
Exactly. And so when we talk about which style works best in which situation, well, if you talk about a hunter, you're going to lean more to looking for a D or a C. They're based in that fact world. Here's your ROI. Here's the 7% now. You're going to increase your efficiency by 12.2%. Facts. And those folks are dealing with that area. If you're talking about a farmer, you're talking about more about the relationship. How is this going to make me feel? How's this going to impact our employees? Those kind of things. And so those farmers need to be relational. And so that high I and high S quality about being people-oriented is so huge.
That's exactly right. And when you think about it, anybody can be any one of those, which is what we talked about in those basic podcasts before. You have to be able to adapt to the other style. So once you can kind of figure out if they're coming at you with that big directness and that fact, you got to be able to respond to that same thing. So your customers will show up that way and you need to respond to them that way because that's where they want to meet.
That's right. And Liz, you mentioned adapting and why that's so important, and it is. And so we've talked about that a little bit earlier in a podcast about if a certain portion of your style is low, then you have to adapt to get above your midline. And so you really have to work hard to express that particular side of things. So, for example, I'm a high I, 100 out of 100. Love it. Getting up in front of people is great. So presenting is never a problem for me. I'll present to 3 ants that are barely alive on the side of a hill if they'll sit there long enough. But for me to work on a spreadsheet, just shoot me now. Kick me in the head, give me a root canal, and slap me upside the face at the same time. That's how much I enjoy that, which is basically a hardcore, no way, no how, no. However, I can do that stuff. I keep spreadsheets, financials, for as a CEO, I have to look over those things and go through the projections and whatnot. But I don't enjoy it, and so I have to really work hard to adapt to get my 4, not 40, but 4, single-digit 4C to push way up above that graph to be able to deal with all that data and forecasting. And so it's just, by the time I'm done, I'm coded, I'm done, I'm flatlined, I've got no energy left for the rest of the day because I've had to expend so much energy to get to that point. And so
that's exactly right. And that you and I must be two of a kind because I got that 100 I, not to make it about me, but I am a high I and I like it there. So 100 on me and I'm a 6 on the C as well. And it's tiresome when you go into that detail work, but it is possible. Everybody can do it.
That's right. It's just a matter of how much are you willing to pay in emotions and physical and mental energy to get to those places. So when you're looking for a job in sales and you're a D or a C, you don't want to be on the other side of the equation, which is the farmer role, which is what we're talking about right now in terms of the relationships and going in and shaking hands and kissing babies and, hey, how's Diane, your niece? I heard, she was at a horse, thing. How did that go? D's don't care about your niece. They don't care about that. They're talking about, dude, we're production here, man. We've increased your ROI by 121.3%. 0.3, mind you. 0.3%. The C's are like, okay, well, we're going to focus on the facts here, and we've got to have a 70% reduction in overall costs in this area. Well, I've done my spreadsheet, and I've done 3 pivot tables to describe. I'm like, oh, my Lord, shoot me. But
and the poor I's and S's are looking at you like you got 4 eyes.
I'm like, I'm in a car right now. And I just wrecked because I spaced out, I tuned out, and it was gone. So those farmers, all about the relationship building. And so at the point where they're ready to make a sale, it's simpler for them because they've already got a relationship established, and they're sharing information like it's a friend as opposed to like it's a potential client. And it makes it easier for them.
And it seems like that's a perfect place for us to kind of leap off into looking at that sales cycle. As you think about, sales cycles and sales processes and how long it takes, I naturally think about I's and S's liking that relationship, liking to kind of build into that and not caring how long it goes because they want to really be able to link into that. Whereas those D's and C's, they like that get in, get out, as you mentioned before. So when you start thinking about sales cycles, sales processes, and you're looking at what do I enjoy doing most as a salesperson, you want to also think about that is how quick does that sale closes as opposed to how long is that process? What thoughts do you have on that, Alex?
It's a great point, Liz. And if you think about it, D's and C's, task-oriented. They're treating a sale like a task. So the more that they can do, the faster they can get those boxes checked, and that kind of drives them and gives them that satisfaction, gives them that fuel, if you will, emotionally. So if you've got a quick turnaround and a shorter sales cycle, that's going to be perfect for your D's and C's versus your I and S's. Like you said, that longer sales cycle, that's fine for them. They're developing relationships. They're having a good time. They're getting to know people. And so the longer that goes, the more the more friendship value increases, the better off they feel about their client, their product, their prospects. It just makes sense for them and it makes it easy for them versus, again, like we said earlier, the D's don't have time for that mess. They're just trying to check boxes. They don't want to have to deal with people. And so versus the I's and S's who are, if they're trying to get into a hunter role, they're having to deal with the fact that, oh my gosh, I've only been here 15 minutes. I don't even know these people. They don't even know me, and they're supposed to buy from me. I don't feel comfortable here. I'm trying to make a pitch to these people. I sound so fake. It sounds unnatural. Ugh.
And that will tend to bother the S's significantly, don't you think? Now,
No
the
doubt.
I's might be able to respond to that a little bit, but those S's, it really does scare them.
No doubt. They are investing themselves into their prospects. And so if you cut off the time that they get to invest, they feel inadequate. I haven't had time to build a relationship. You want me to walk in here and make a 30-minute presentation for a $750,000 product? No. I mean, what right person would even think about trusting me at that point? And we're going to get into that in just a second. But
Yep, that sounds great. So why don't you take us there? What kind of person would like to do that?
Well, it's all about your target customer. And when we talk about target customer, we're not talking about your industry per se, although that plays a role, but we're talking about who that decision maker is that you're dealing with. Who are they? What are they like? What is their personality style?
So are you saying, do they have blonde hair, blue eyes? What do you mean by who are they?
Who are they in terms of how do they think? What are their drivers? What motivates them, and what makes them make a decision the way they do? If you can tap into that knowledge and understand that human behavior has a pattern to it, if I've got C's, if I've got I's, or I'm dealing with an S, I pretty much know kind of how they're wired. I can focus on those things in terms of if I have an S that I'm trying to sell to who's in human resources, they're going to care about their people. They don't want to let a single one of them go. They want to hold on to those people dearly because they're the lifeblood of their organization. I've got to speak emotion to emotion. I've got to speak person to person. I can't be about, well, if we cut these 20 people, we're going to increase, your overall performance by 6%. Man, I can't justify 6% letting 20 people go. Johnny, I've known for 25 years. I mean, his wife and mine, they've gone to dinner together and everything else, and there's a story there, which we'll get to stories a little bit later too. So there's an emotional investment for an S. And D, okay, let him go. 8%. You think I can get 9.5 out of that as opposed to 8? How about if I cut 2 more? Yeah, okay, now we're up to 10%. Double digits, baby. Let's go. Woo-hoo!
Well,
I mean, I'm there. So it's all about who's that decision maker and what drives them. D versus C versus I versus S. It all makes sense when you're looking at it from what motivates them and how emotionally are they tied or not tied to a situation.
And can I just throw in just enough to get them enticed for future episodes? But I always think of their title, because even though they can be a different style, they will tend to lean towards certain styles when they're in those roles. And as I think about it, I'm thinking about a CFO who will tend to be a high C. They tend to have that analytical style to there, or they could be a D too. But we're looking at the detail, and usually the detail will mean a high C. Even though when I used to work in Hong Kong, we had a CFO that was the best S and the best joker I'd ever seen. So not all CFOs are going to be a high C, but that's just how the titles work.
That's right. VP of Finance like that. Your CIOs are going to be, high Cs. Your Chief People Officer typically going to be on the people side of the graph, which is your S's and I's. So, and like you said, Liz, sometimes you are end up in those situations and it doesn't match up, and those folks have to adapt very much. But people typically, lean those ways. If I'm going as an accounting major, if I'm not a C or a D, man, I'm choosing the wrong career path because that is, I'm not going to be satisfied sitting on a cubicle crunching numbers all day as a high S or a high I. It's just, whew.
And if I could just insert one little thought is, if there are our listeners out there kind of unhappy in the roles they're in, they like sales, but they're not exactly, hitting it with the company they're with, it could be this kind of nuance that they need to look at. And I think that that's something that everybody needs to reflect on is who do I like to sell to, and what sales cycle do I like? And am I a hunter or farmer? So I think that all helps play into a person's satisfaction.
That's perfect. It's a perfect segue. We're talking about selling, we're talking about buying, and we've all heard that saying about people buy from people they. And
Can I say it?
And you fill in the blank there. You go ahead, Liz.
I say people they like.
Okay, people they like.
They want to buy from people they like.
Okay, and then I've also heard that people buy from people they trust. Okay, and Zig Ziglar is a big proponent of that as well. So Let's talk about this whole like and trust thing. And there are very interesting dynamics that go on within personality styles where it directly impacts which of those you prefer and the order in which they come. So trust is established differently on different sides of the circle. Let's establish that fact.
Okay.
I's and S's have to like you before they trust you.
Now, why would that be? Let's think about that just for a minute. Break that down for me, Alex.
Okay, so I's and S's are people-oriented. They're on that people side of the circle. And so they work best with people that are relatable, folks who are engaging, folks who have a good sense of humor. Not necessarily telling jokes 50 times in an hour, but just have a good sense of humor. Folks who are comfortable to be around. Once you've made them as the customer feel comfortable and made them smile, then that automatically links them to, oh, I like this guy. I like this guy right here. You'd buy a used car from him. It doesn't matter. They'd have you in the palm of their hand because that's how you relate. And again, as an I'm that same way. I want a salesperson to come in, treat me well. Let's have a little bit of a good time. And I'm not focused on necessarily the details of, is this going to improve my efficiency by 0.7% or 0.8%, that to me is not a big a deal as, do I like you? Okay, this guy's representing a company. They must share the same core values. I know he's going to take care of me because he's concerned about me as a person.
Yeah. And I just want to add in there that really with the S's, as you think about that style, they like that one-on-one connection. So that's why they like the smaller groups, whereas I's will, like we know, perform to the audience, but the S's like that smaller connection. So they need that time up front in that sales cycle to really be able to relate to a person and really get that trust going.
That's right. And that's why for a quick sales cycle, it's difficult for S's as a customer to be able to say yes, because they feel pressured to say something, either yes or no, and they need time to process. They need to, slow it down. I got to have some time. Maybe you can come back again, and we can sit down over a cup of coffee and work through this. It's not one of those things like a D or an I would be like, 30 seconds later, yep, done. Let's do it. Give me some paperwork.
Exactly.
S's and C's. Okay, hold up. Let's pull it back a little bit, and let's make sure we've got a commitment from everybody. Let's make sure that I've had a chance to analyze it, and I can feel good about it. Because, again, S's, the style that doesn't like to change. If you're going to introduce anything new, how's this going to affect me? How's this going to affect the people I'm around? What's this going to do to my workflow? What's this going to do to the protocols we already have in place?
That's right. Making sure that pace stays where it's methodical and they can know what's going to happen on the next step. So I think you're exactly right.
Indeed. Now, our D's and our C's, they are the opposite. They have to trust you before they like you. So D's and C's have to trust before they like you. So how do they build that trust as a salesperson? Give them facts. Give them data. They want to see that evidence.
They do. And it is one of those where it's a small nuance, but if they don't trust you, you are never going to get anywhere in that sales cycle. So a lot of times the I's and S's, if they're salespeople, will go right at them with trying to think they can convince them to like them. But D's and C's are like, forget it. If you're not going to talk business, we think you're fluff.
You come in telling jokes to a D and a C audience, forget it. You're done. You're not going to gain anywhere. You're like, okay, that's 3 minutes of my time with your little joke that I can't get back in my life. I've got 47 things to do. Land your plane, buddy. What do you got to sell me? Get down to the nuts and bolts and let's go. So those Ds want to know, what is it going to do for them? What's it going to do for their organization? Is it going to improve something in their life? Again, if you're going B2C, or is it going to improve something in my organization if you're going B2B? And those
They want results.
That's right. Those results. What's it going to do for me? Is it going to increase by 5%? Is it going to eliminate this? Is it going to add to that? Whatever the example is for the product or service that you're selling.
Right.
And those C's want to know why they should buy it. You know, does that why make sense to them? Is it going to have a logical progression of, if I start at A, where I am right now, and I add your product, what is E going to look like? You know, why is this going to make something so great of a change in my organization that I'm going to have enough evidence to pull the trigger?
And C's can be convinced as long as you give them the facts and you give them that logical progression. I think logic is the word in that one too. I think between the logic, the facts, and enough detail, you can get a C convinced as to where to go if your argument's there.
That's right. And C's typically are glass half empty people anyway. They always see that, okay, well, is this really going to do what it's going to do? You've got to give me facts. You've got to give me data. They're the cautious type. That's why we put that label on them. They're going to, wait a minute. Let me just examine, analyze again, overanalyze. They calculate. They're contemplative. They're thinking about it just a long time to process that data. But then once the data makes sense, they don't have a problem pulling the trigger because then now they've validated their choice.
That's right. It makes me think the word skeptical. They're always a little bit of skeptical, but I like the way that you say the half glass full, the half glass empty, the glass half empty. Oh my God.
The glass half glassy. I think we both messed up that one. So maybe we'll edit that out. Maybe we won't. Just let people laugh at us. It's always fun. We're eyes,
Oh my. What's the detail, right?
We're just here for the refreshments, people. I mean, come on. So there's your paradigm there. I's and S's. If you're going to sell to them, they have to like you before they trust you. If you're going to sell to D's and C's, they have to trust you before they like you. And we've given you some proof there. In either one of these scenarios, Liz, the stories are the key. You've got to be able to tell stories about your product or your service or experiences that you've had, because you can touch both sides of the graph with those stories.
You can. And it's one of those that you want to be able to, if you think about the D&C, they're all about the facts. So they want to have that kind of logical thing. So make sure that you address stories that talk about the data, the process, the logic to something that happens. Whereas for the other side of the circle, the I's and S's, you got to do what, Alex?
You got to stir those emotions and really tell a story that has to do with people and something about your product or service that impacts someone, made a positive change. I had Bob, who works for me, and I'm in HR, and Bob's going to have to be laid off unless we do something. And Bob's got a sick child, and he's going to be on unemployment and COBRA and all this other stuff that he can't afford. We've got to be able to do this. Well, with our product, you can increase your efficiency by 10%, but better yet, Bob gets to keep his job. You don't have to tell Bob he has to go away. You can make sure Bob takes care of that. And then you tell a story where Bob actually got to keep his job and his child did recover because of your service. Now you've got a winning story to tell those I and S type prospects and clients. The other side of that, use data to tell a story that has evidence about when you went into another organization, we decreased workplace conflict by 27%. We improved efficiency by 12.8%. Okay, I'm listening. You got me.
Yeah. And it could be that same story of Bob, right? You're just hitting one angle on the emotions, and the other story you're hitting the facts and the data. So you definitely can just change and adapt just slightly, knowing who you're selling to.
We're working on lining up a special guest, well-renowned speaker from the NSA, who's an associate of mine, who is just an absolute guru, phenomenal expert at storytelling. This is what she does when she's on the platform. And so we'll give you some insight in terms of how to create your story, why storytelling is so powerful, and then give you some ideas about how to add storytelling to your own sales process. So excited about that.
Ooh, that would be a good one to listen to. Let me know when that is, Alex.
I will let you know because it'll be on our shared calendar. So to recap, we got to know our role. Are you a hunter or are you a farmer in a process? And that will dictate in terms of, how you either have to adapt or right in your wheelhouse from your own unique personality style. Know your target customer. Identify what style they are. Again, we've got an upcoming podcast, so we'll talk about how to identify that a little bit better. D's and C's, trust you before they like you. I's and S's, they have to like you first, then they trust you later. And again, stories are key for stirring emotions and or providing facts depending on your audience. Cater your stories to your audience, and you're going to find some instant connection, and people will buy in and get you into that more of the steps 4, 5, and 6 of the cycle after you start building that rapport. Sell them with some stories, and you'll be off and running.
And Alex, I just want to jump in just long enough to tell our listeners, you do a fabulous job of bringing those stories in and really relating it when you're doing these workshops. So I'm just giving you a plug today because, by guys, you do a fabulous job with that and bringing it to life.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We try hard, and it's easy to have stories when you're married to the opposite side of the circle. And as I've said in previous podcasts, I'm a high IS. My wife is a high CD. We cannot be any more polar opposites. So there's always fun stories in our house in terms of how I can't get the groceries on the grocery list home, because I'll get 10 out of the 12 items. And she's like, why can't you? Anyway, it's a long, horrible story about why I can't.
We got to do one of these people ones pretty soon, being spouses, because I got an SC spouse too. So we could go a lot of places with that.
Yeah, I've had many grocery fails in my lifetime in marriage with my wife. But she puts up with me, and hopefully I bring a smile to her face every once in a while. Oh dear. But that's going to do it for today's show. I'd like to thank Liz Parker, as always, for joining me as my special guest today. Liz, how can folks get in touch with you?
So can I start by just saying, look on my website at ltresults.com.
That's good. And they can email you at liz@ltresults.com too, which is
Thank
is always good. To get in touch with me, you can visit therapportadvantage.com. Our Facebook page is The Rapport Advantage. Follow the show on Twitter at Rapport Podcast. We always try to get our tweets out there in terms of when the podcast is coming down. Typically, we're coming out Tuesday mornings at 5:30 a.m. Eastern is our target time. So if you are on your commute on Tuesday mornings, you can pop on to the podcast. If you've got a podcast app like Podcast Addict, or we're on iTunes We're on Google Play as well. We're going to be moving to Stitcher and Spotify and all of those other types of mediums here very soon, as soon as the high I that's trying to run this outfit figures out all the technology that goes with that, which is sometimes above my pay grade.
What if these guys want to try and figure out who they are? Do they have a way to do that yet?
Sure. You can come over to my website, therapportadvantage.com, and click on the Rapport Store tab. And then once you get to that page, there's a little blue Rapport Store. You click on it, and it'll take you right to the assessment page to find the right one for you. If you want to have a basic version, those are less than $15, take less than 10 minutes to run through, give you a nice little 6-page outline of your personality style, strengths, who you adapt well with, who you work well with. You can also do packages that go up to $60, $70, $90, depending on what you're looking for. And of course, those reports pack in so much more data, talking about workplace conflict management skills, all that kind of good stuff. There are leadership packages. We have fitness ones. We have ones in Spanish, French, you name it. Sprechen Sie Deutsch, we don't have yet, but we habla español, and we do some parlez-vous français, as I just offended all my folks who are in Quebec. So sorry about that, guys. We are on LinkedIn as well, so look for us there. We appreciate you spending your time with us today. If you like what you're hearing so far, please leave us a review on iTunes. We would definitely appreciate that and address any kind of questions that you have there. And in our next episode, I'm not going to tell you what's coming because we could have a number of different topics, but it will be something along the lines of storytelling, or it might be how to read people effectively. It will just depend on how well we get our guests lined up. And of course, as always, what your questions are. So your questions always take precedent in terms of what our show topic is going to be for the day. And so we're going to always keep that on the main front. So next week, be listening in for a surprise episode.
All right. I can't wait for that one.
Well, thanks so much, Liz, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. I always love being on this.
Well, we enjoy it too. You've been listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation on Facebook at the Rapport Advantage and follow us on Twitter at Rapport Podcast.